For decades now, many people have clamored for a change, not only of Nigeria's constitution, but revenue-sharing formula and even power rotation.
That words like devolution of power, true federalism, fiscal federation, restructuring, regionalism, and more have become common rhetorics in debates across various divides. But today, voices that were once silent are now loud. State governments, once timid, are now politically aggressive. Many advocates of more power to state governments seem to be winning an age-long battle.
Exactly. Now, will restructuring Nigeria be in its best interest? That's a big question. And to give us answer to that, and of course more questions later on, is the chairman of the Advanced People's Democratic Alliance, APDA, Kabir Shitu. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Really nice to have you in the studio.
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
All right. So, first off, let's ask you really, is APDA in favor of restructuring or not?
It's embedded in our manifesto. And we know restructuring means different to different people. To us, an Advanced People Democratic Alliance, we believe that restructuring should be for development, where the state are component unit of the federating unit, not the regional. We should do away now and forget about regional. Then look at why people are calling for regionalism, which is indigenship. Remove it. If I'm 10-year-old in USA today, I can be voted for. I'm a citizen already. I have a privilege of citizenship. So we should also now emulate from that. Remove the issue of indigenship. Allow people to stay wherever they are, invest and be part of that.
As far as you are a Nigerian.
As far as you are a Nigerian. In fact, we should encourage other African nations to be an indigenous of Nigeria, to be wherever the resident they become. That will encourage the world to even invest. You don't get investment where people know that their investment are not guaranteed, where they know that their grandparents will not, and grandchildren will not be able to take the advantage of those investments. They will not invest there. And this is time that Nigeria now, we need to change a new leaf in our own, both international and internal affairs.
All right. Well, from the papers we read this morning, a lot of states having different meetings after they had reviewed what restructuring is. Some are saying, no, we don't want it. For instance, on the papers this morning, we read Kano State, Katsina State, Jigawa State are saying we don't want restructuring. Benue State, Plateau State, on the other hand, are saying, no, restructuring is the way to go. Why do we not all have an understanding of what this restructuring or the need for restructuring? Why is it misunderstood?
Yes, because it means different thing to different people. It is now let everybody bring his ideology. We now put it, there's channels, there's National Assembly, we channel it through proper channel. They look at it, look at what will be of advantage to each, that will be of common advantage, and then bring it out and then now show it to Nigeria. If you are talking to some people, they don't believe in regionalism. And some people believe that restructuring means regionalism, fiscal federation. Do we ask ourselves, we need this restructuring? Because if you look at our federating unit, we only go and share. If you look at our fiscal, we share, we don't generate. You must now look at exclusive list and look at concurrent list and look at how do we encourage the state as a component unit of the country to take advantage of the resources within their own domain. If people know that maybe we are cassava growers and we can now turn this cassava into export by bringing in infrastructures where this cassava can be translated back to maybe what you call starch and export. And then another product from cassava. And then if you have gum arabic in your state, and you know that if the state tap into this gum arabic, it will yield revenue for not for them to encourage sharing. That's what we encourage in our system today. We should now discourage that, encourage where people generate wealth from within their area. Then they will now be liable and to their people. People will now know there are a lot that we need to structure. Even we need to now look at our electoral process and look at it. The sovereignty lies in the hands of people. But today, it is the other way. So we must restructure and let the people know that this power is in your hand. This infrastructure being put in place in your state is to be maintained by you. If you say, let's assume the state should generate funds to pay their current expenditures and allow maybe some intervention from federal for infrastructures. If you don't pay them their salary, as a governor, you now sit down to see, okay, how do I generate funds to pay my recurrent expenditures? Okay. Since this recurrent expenditure cannot come from the federal.
All right, let me just come.
This will encourage us.
Let me come in here now. The monitoring the voices calling for restructuring and no restructuring in the country, you would of course agree that the voices have been loudest in the southern part of the country, but in the north, and of course to lay credence to it, the news out today on the papers that governors, the majority of them are not ready for restructuring. And then what the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar said, that in fact those opposing it in the northern part are just trying to be lazy. They don't want to put themselves to work. But then we know that Nigeria is blessed with so many natural resources. So do you think there is need for a sit down sort of, or especially for a party like yours now that you are trying to offer something new to the people, for people to understand, and then the states to understand, all the states in the country to understand that restructuring doesn't necessarily mean disunity or disintegration of the country, but in fact it could make Nigeria more viable and all states more viable?
Yes, that is why we must now bring history back to our education system. The people agitating for this division of the country, they don't even know the history of the country. If they look at if the history of this country could be told, take it back to primary and secondary and our tertiary institutions. Let them, when people have history. And then secondly, you must, as a government, as a people, give information to people. People, that's why I say restructured means different to different people. So if I know that if there's a restructure, there will be a breaking of the country, will I accept that when it's already settled at the law that this country is indivisible? But I must be educated on that. That is why the National Orientation Agency have a lot of work to do in this respect, because you must first of all orientate people, and then you must secondly look at what are people's mindset. You must now also direct their mindset to development, because what they believe is go Abuja, share this money, how much do we get this month? Whereas if you tap into the resources, is it aquatic resources for the south people? Is it agricultural resources for we in the north? Is it mineral resources for we in the north central? And we have, every state have something to take home until you are educated, and until you look at exclusive list and look at it that, look, roads cannot be constructed only by the federal. How will I be coming to Lagos? I have to now take a federal road, which it is dilapidated. Allow state to construct these roads and then put toll gate if they like. It check our security, it give them more revenue, and the state is gone for that. Allow state to construct rail lines. There are areas that allow state to now tap and bring in processing plants for agricultural, aquatic, or mineral resources within their domain. And then let the state own some of these. They have the power, but because the states are not generating, they don't care about generating, they only care about going to share. So we must do away with that.
All right. Now, a lot of leaders, some leaders have called on Nigeria going back to the 1963 arrangement where it was based on region. Are you saying that you are not in support of going back to the regions?
It has settled at law that Nigeria is indivisible. Ask you, the State Assembly of Lagos, would they be allowed to be dissolved and say, okay, you are going back to Ibadan? When you see at European Union today are even taking more of state. They are even begging Turkey that Turkey has to come in. They want to have a common military personnel, military. They want to have a common economic blueprint. They want to have, then in Nigeria, Americans start with 13 states. American today is going to about 56 states. Instead of us to start begging those countries around us to come around with us, we're supposed to start taking them up, put up economic development within their domain, annex them, and then expand the country for good. Africans were the African giant. Are we just giants sleeping and sharing? The answer is no. The issue of division or the issue of secession or something, I think that has been settled by law.
All right, but
and
the law...
we should do away with that.
Okay, the law you're talking about that has cast the unity of the country and, of course, the indivisibility of the country in stone, sort of, was drafted by the military junta. And many on the side are saying that there is need for a people's constitution, that it is not even proper in the first place for a civilian government to be using a constitution put in place by a military regime. So, would you support?
Do you know that, George?
Would you support, you know, a new constituent assembly, sort of, to draft a constitution for the democratic nation of Nigeria today?
I want us to note that George Washington was a military man, and today is the father of America. They are the people that gave constitution that guide American today. They are military. Forget about either military, they are Nigerian. And it is our professors in the universities that must have drafted this constitution for them. Whoever have drafted the constitution, today we have National Assembly, we have Council of State, we have State Assembly. Are they not working? They are working. And when you are talking
if they are working well, why the need for amendments then?
That is why, now that we have identified those amendments, we channel it through normal National Assembly and State Assembly. We sit down as people, as group, as political party. Now we have embedded it in our own manifesto as a party. Nigerians should look at APDA manifesto, and we have called ourselves, we are an ideological political party, and then look at where we are going wrong. You should know that all this agitation are sometimes self-aggradation. People feel, okay, we have lost out of power here, therefore we must put something that will make people to like us, will make the government uncomfortable, will make, and we, the masses, will go on the street, kill ourselves. They take their own children to the American, we are talking where a military draft their constitution, and today is their father. Mao Zedong was one today that is the father of modern China. Look around. So why are we talking? They are Nigerian.
Of course, President Muhammadu Buhari has said it many times, and of course many officials of the government have said the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. It is cast in stone, really. It's sacrosanct. Yeah, that's the word now. But then, from the history of the country, how the regions were put together and all that, many would have said a sit-down would be proper to even unify the country more, to ensure the unity in its diversity is even entrenched. Don't you agree?
At each time we sit down, we have sat for over 5 times. You have recently, in 2014, they sat down during, we have Abacha 1994 Constitutional Conference, we sat down. There are various times that the country has
most of the times, these sit-downs were put in place, most usually the heads of state or the person in charge of the country at that time wouldn't even have the time, you know, to carry out the recommendations. The last one, 2014, was conducted by former President Goodluck Jonathan. He didn't get second term in office. Now, that is why I asked that question, really, that is it because past heads of states or presidents would really want to put something in place, but predecessor wouldn't want to look at them with at face value. So maybe if the present administration does its own at this time, still has time, maybe then it will be committed to want to do something about it.
We can see it more than 50 times as a country if we don't have and change our mindset, educate our young ones, bring back our history, believe in our system. You will be sitting, wasting the resources, hard-earned resources of the country, just giving some few elites, spending this money when you have state assembly there, you have national assembly, you have senators there, you have the House of Rep. They are all representing each area. They have constituencies. And then when you are talking of going to sit again, where are you taking those people? Is it from the same constituency you have your members from, or the same constituency you have your senators from? You understand? You see, this democracy we are practicing is very, very expensive. So for you to now, again, take that little resources until we change our mindset. Until
that was what the former president Olusegun Obasanjo just said.
If you change
mindset restructuring is
mindset restructuring is the most important. And then look at those little hindrances like indigenship. Remove it. Those are the hindrances that does not allow economic development. Allow even foreigners to come. Today, if I go to American, why do our people steal our money? They believe that if they steal this money, they go to US, after a few months, they can be voted for, become a citizen. Why can't we, as a people, Nigerian, as a country, also let African or everybody come and be a citizen of Nigeria?
Okay, let me put you on hold and bring Foladele here to give us a perspective on social media. So we know what Nigerians are saying. Many Nigerians, Fola, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Nice to see you.
Good morning, Kabir.
Well,
restructuring talks are louder than ever. Let's find out, like you said, how Nigerians are reacting. And if they are confused about what this restructuring really means, Bapi just says, I'm 100% for restructuring for Nigeria, restructuring to return to true federalism, similar to what we practiced in the First Republic. And he continues and he says, the psychology of self-interest will be the primary motivation for development. Nobody, in bracket region, will want to carry last, if we restructure, that is. Ayashoguro says, the elite are hijacking the restructuring talk, but Nigeria's middle class is still trying to join the structure rather, to change from the inside.
Is there a middle class anymore?
Ben Murray Bruce tweets a lot.
Yeah,
says,
exactly.
Nigeria can't
Let's
go on.
hear the common sense then.
Exactly. Nigeria can't go on with a situation where 69% of her income is spent on 3% of her population. Restructuring isn't an option, it's a necessity. Stephanie Hagati says, when people talk about restructuring Nigeria, what exactly do they mean? Everything I've read so far is very vague. And this is a Caucasian living in Nigeria, so you can understand her confusion. So maybe you can break it down for her later. Adefisaya Adeniji says, it will sure remain vague to those who barely know the history of Nigeria. Fair enough, maybe.
Well, that logically explains it.
Exactly.
Because if you know the configuration of Nigeria, the ethnic, the region, the religion, what all of that plays in our polity, then you really know what it means to get restructured.
Exactly. But do you think it's possible that people are confused because different people have different things that restructuring means to them?
That is why we must go back to history. That is why we must educate Nigerians. National orientations will stand up. We must educate Nigerians to know what are the hindrances that have stopped us from development. Because restructuring should be for development. It's not to start calling for regional, for this. But for how do we develop? How do government be responsible to its electorate? How do the electorate knows their own right, that the sovereignty lies in them? If we take you as our governor, what are you generating in the state? There are our resources. We have cocoa. What are we doing with cocoa? Do we have cocoa factory in Ibadan? Do we have chocolate factory? Do we
enhance competitiveness?
Yeah, enhance competitiveness between the state. Let the state be the component unit. You can't go back to regionalism again. If you are going back to regionalism, that means all the state assemblies have to now merge to be in Ibadan. But what we do, expand this, but allow competition between states. Allow how do they improve on the infrastructures in those states? How will my state take comparative advantage of the little agricultural or aquatic or mineral resources within my domain? That is why in APDA we are saying there should be community development committees where you now leave local government to community. If in your community today it is tomato you have, let us now say, okay, let's put tomato processing plant being managed by that community development committee where the young ones will be the workers there. Maybe 50% of that factory will be their own. They know that even when they die, their children will work in that factory. It will not die. And then remove indigenship, where if I'm an Igbo man and I bring investment, I believe that my great-grandchildren, my great-grandchildren,
thank you for that.
From this, for that.
This is a major, because we remember that the Clifford Constitution, the Richard Littleton, Matheson, and all of that. For every of those constitutions had something incremental. There were restructuring and tweaking and so on. But after 1979, I guess that was the end. We didn't see any major structure again until now. But this is where we have to leave it now. Chairman, Advanced People's Democratic Alliance, Kabir Shitu, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
APDA will give you a new leave. We are ready.
We leave that to Nigerians. So it has to do with how well you educate Nigerians.
We create a new Nigerian.
We look forward to it.
Yeah, you.
We look forward to it.
We look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.